All right, guys. Okay, today we have our first guest ever on our podcast. Usually it's just me and Delancey, but we're super excited. And if you follow me on Instagram, you've already seen her story posted, but I had to have her come on our podcast because you guys, I know it's easier to kind of listen to her story via just pop in some headphones and go. But you guys, this woman, she is like a force to be reckoned with. And I absolutely love her. And I love her mission that she's on. And I'm excited for Delancey to hear her story because this girl, I told her Kel before we even started, I said she has been through so much shit, like so much, like you like, and just the human being that she is, the world needs to just know her. Like everybody needs to know her because she's amazing. And I don't know if you heard that on my computer. I'm sorry if you did. Anyway. All right. Okay, you guys, we will go ahead and I will yeah, Raquel, I'm just gonna turn the time over to you because I want everybody to hear about you. So okay, go ahead.
Um, man, I always start by saying I'm much more of a writer than I am a speaker. And so sometimes I stumble over my words and I feel a little awkward, but we'll fumble through it anyway. Um, so I think what people find most interesting about me is that I have experienced all three sides of adoption, the adoption triad. I just started, I've said I would do it for years, and I started writing a memoir about my life because it really does sound like a lifetime original. And I've been posting it a chapter at a time on my newsletter. And so it's really crazy, but it's like, so the story started the year I was born because that's really when it started. But my biological parents were young, and both of them struggled with addiction and just were really not ready to be parents. They weren't capable of being a safe place for me. So I think I went back and forth a lot for about 2 years between my grandparents' house and my biological mother. And the as the story goes, she came to see me one last time and said, you know, Mommy, I see you tomorrow. And my grandma told her, don't tell her things you don't mean. Either come back tomorrow or don't come back at all. And she never came back. And I was 2. And after that happened, my grandparents petitioned for custody. And so I'm finding out like later in life, like piecing all of this together, they never officially adopted me. So it was kinship care, and they gained custody, but they split that custody with my biological father because he was unwilling to sign over his rights. He wanted to be daddy when it was convenient. And he had a big heart and he loved me the best way that he knew how, but he was not a responsible parent either. So I was raised by my grandparents, and it's only within the last couple years that I started even calling myself an adoptee, because I was in this weird space of I'm nobody's daughter. Like, I'm raised by my grandparents. I call them Granny and Pa. I see my father occasionally when it's convenient for him. I like to say that he was consistently inconsistent. Um, and I don't know. I learned about kinship care and kinship adoption, and it felt like it was a spot that I belonged in. Like, if they would have taken one final step and just finalized it, I would have, you know, officially been their daughter. And it wasn't until actually a couple years ago, my grandma, and she's getting older now, but she was like, why don't you call me mom? And I'm like, because you always had me call you grandma, and I'm
Right.
30 something now. It'd be a little awkward. And she even went through this phase. Like, she started, like, because we travel full time, and she would send cards and sign them "Love Mom," just completely out of the blue. And I don't know if it was her own little mini crisis that she was going through, but um she anytime she never knew how to handle it in a healthy way. And so, like, even in my 30s, like, taking her to a doctor's appointment, she would introduce me to her doctor and be like, this is our granddaughter. Well, she's more like my daughter because me and her grandpa raised her because her mama didn't want her. So I grew up like anytime I didn't know. Okay, I'm jumping around a lot. I'm feeling spacey today. Sorry,
No,
I
you're good.
struggle with this.
No, you're fine.
I was about to say, you're completely fine. We do that all the time, so you're in good company.
If you can follow the rabbit trails, there's a good story in all of it. So dadgummit, I forgot that train of thought.
You guys were at the doctor. She used to introduce you as like
As your granddaughter, but
really daughter.
Yep. Okay, yes. So anytime, I didn't know my biological mother's name until I was 13 because it was kind of like a 4-letter word in our house. Like the only time she was ever mentioned, it was your mother didn't love you. Your mother didn't want you. And like looking back, my grandparents were really loving, great people. I don't think it was ever malicious. It was, I think, my grandma's way of trying to validate that I was loved and wanted by them. Like, your mom didn't want you, but we did. Your mom didn't love you, but we did. So I feel like it was her way of addressing the void that she knew that I noticed, but then trying to affirm that I was still wanted and loved. But obviously that does a little bit of damage to a person
Right,
long term when you think about it. And but so she never knew how to handle that situation because my biological mother was not blood to her. They were my paternal grandparents. And so then they kept pushing for this relationship with my father, who was also a terrible influence and in and out. And God love him, he struggled with addiction his entire life. Just a constant revolving door of women. And so I had this relatively normal childhood mixed with these incredibly abnormal scenarios that I didn't realize wasn't normal until I got older and was able to, process everything. So all of that backstory, and I could go into details, but I won't. Just like whenever I hit 12, 13, I started spending weekends at my dad's house, and he didn't know how to be a parent. He knew how to be a friend, and he was trying to, because my grandfather that I love so dearly, that was an amazing, amazing father figure in my life, was not for his own children. So my dad was a product of his own childhood trauma, trying to do better than what had been done to him. And so instead of being a healthy parental figure, he was like, I'll just be a friend. And so, I mean, I think I was 12, maybe 13 when he found out I was smoking cigarettes. He picked me up from the skating rink one night and tossed a pack of cigarettes to me. And he's like, you want one? And I was like, no. And he was like, I know you smoke. I got eyes all over this town. If you want them, you can have them, but I'm not buying you another pack. You'll buy your own. So just kind of this, yeah. And so I was allowed to, like, by 13, I could drink whiskey at his house. I could smoke weed. I could, like, it was a free for all. So by 13, I was in this really unhealthy downward spiral of just, I probably internally, like, not even realizing it, but just subconsciously trying to process the trauma that I had been exposed to, the unhealthy situations that I had witnessed, and that's the thing with kinship adoption that I want to shine a light on. Like, people don't realize, in most cases, kinship adoption is like the step before the state gets involved, because someone in the family is stepping up to take in a child because they know if they don't, something bad's going to happen. Like, you don't just step up to take a child just for the heck of it, within your family. Like, generally it's a situation that, would warrant the state to step in. And so then you're constantly still exposed. Most family members will not set hard boundaries to protect the child, they want to keep the child safe, so they're taking them in. But like in my situation, like my grandparents took me in, but I had a front row seat and an invitation to join the chaos consistently.
Right.
So yeah, 13, just a downward spiral. I became very promiscuous, drinking, to the point, like I would go to school intoxicated. I was hiding liquor bottles in my bedroom, drugs, mostly weed, which is, depending on what state you're in, it's whatever. We won't get into that. But,
I think that's a topic for another day.
I love it.
For another day. But then also, so there was this one instance where I was about to buy cocaine, and the girl that was selling it to me left school that day early, sick. So I didn't buy it and I didn't seek it out again. But I would people would hand me pills like by the handfuls, and I had no idea what they were. I'd just pop them. Just stupid, reckless stuff like that. And because like I had this reputation, I was also a fighter. And so I was like part of the in crowd for all the wrong reasons. Like I wasn't one of the cool, pretty popular kids. I was one of the bad, will do whatever it takes kind of kids. So I put myself in some really dangerous situations. At one point I ended up in this trailer that with grown men, and someone knocked on the door yelling, "Police, let us in." And they're all freaking out. And in that moment, I'm like, I'm in a really bad spot. Like the police are knocking on the door. These guys are freaking out. I knew that a few of them were drug dealers. I wasn't sure what all else was going on there. And it ended up being one of their friends trying to prank them. But in that moment, I just knew, I was like, I'm not in a good place.
Yeah.
And all of like, when you live that lifestyle, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be subjected to sexual abuse. And I had boys take advantage of me a lot. And I ended up being groomed by an older gentleman. And then by the time I was 14, I became pregnant. And that whole season, I ended up moving in with another set of family members. I moved out of my grandparents in with another set of family members. I was told that if I chose to parent, well, first I was told, because I had hid the pregnancy until I was more than 3 months along. The first thing I was told is if I would have found out sooner, I would have made you had an abortion. The second thing I was told was, you cannot parent this child, because if you parent this child, you don't have a place to stay. You can't live here. You can't go back to your grandparents because of the circumstances surrounding the pregnancy. And so I mean, my only option was adoption. And because adoption had never been used to describe my situation, it was all brand new information and just a lot of processing. So my guardian set me up an appointment with an adoption counselor at Bethany Christian Services. And there's just so much to say about that. Like, and so this was at this point, this would have been 19 years ago, a little over 19 years ago. And it wasn't handled well. I was not made aware of my rights. I don't have any paperwork that gave a layout of the adoption plan. I didn't know what I was able to do, what I wasn't able to do. And so by the time I turned 15, it was a few months later that I gave birth. And after that, I slipped into this horrible depression. And I remember when I came home from the hospital, all I could do was cry. And one of my guardians woke me up, and it was the middle of the day, and I just remember I'd cried myself to sleep again. And it was so cold how it was all handled. She was like, I'm dropping you off at a friend's house for a few days because we need to take our kids and leave because they don't need to see you like this. And so I got dropped off at the friend's house, which was a blessing in disguise. The friend was also pregnant, and close to her due date, but she was more nurturing and caring, and empathized a little more than what I was receiving in my home. And the part of my story that I'm just starting to decide to share publicly, because I'm tired of, as much as that, all of that trauma piled on me and tried to keep me in this depressive state, and it was such a challenge. I don't know, it just felt like I was a punching bag. It's like, seriously, God, something else to add to the list. So after, but anyway, I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm tired of trying to protect people that were supposed to protect me,
Right.
and didn't.
Exactly.
So it was after my 6-week checkup at my doctor, and I got, cleared to go back to the gym. I was made to work out every day. It was supposed to keep me out of trouble or something. I would get dropped off at the gym for 2 hours after school. But my other guardian had started going to the gym with me. And after my appointment, after I got cleared from the doctor, that's when the sexual abuse started happening. And it was consistent. It was regular abuse for 2 years. So I lived there for a year pregnant, and then the 2 years after, my sophomore and junior year of high school. And at the end of my junior year, I couldn't take it anymore, and I ran away. I was actually, okay, I've told this story a couple times and it's not made me cry. I guess, I don't know. But I had a therapist at the time that I hadn't told everything to, because I knew she would be required by law to report it. And I was afraid. I'm not going into the circumstances with the father of my birth daughter, because that's not something I do share publicly yet, just to protect her, because it's really hard on her still.
Right.
But it was terrible circumstances, and I was really afraid that if this family member got reported, I would be the cause, because I was blamed for everything that happened before. And I was afraid that I would be blamed for anything that transpired from this. He was also, I was terrified. I was just afraid. And I lived with a lot of guilt for not having reported him. But so my therapist knew that my home life was verbally abusive. She didn't know that I was being molested almost daily. But I think she sensed something, and I didn't realize at the time, but as a grown woman looking back at all the steps that she took that therapists wouldn't normally take. I was 17. I was told my guardians had cut off contact with my grandparents, and I was told that I wouldn't be allowed to go back to see them that summer, which I'd always been allowed to do. And I just, one day in my therapist's office, I just broke down, and I was like, I can't live here anymore. And they're not letting me be in contact with my grandparents. And I want to go back. I don't want to live with you. I don't want to live here anymore. And she said, I'll leave the room and you can use my phone to call your grandparents. She allowed me to call my grandparents, knowing that I was setting up basically a date to run away and go back to them. And that's what I did. I just, and again, I never divulged. And the one thing that makes me angry about it is no adult in this situation at any time from this point moving forward ever asked why it was so bad that I needed to run away, because no one wanted to know. No one wanted to know what was going on, because no one wants to have to face that. So I made the runaway date. I ran away. I got to my grandparents, and I got picked up by the local police department because they had reported me as a runaway. Got picked up by the local police department, taken in, put in a holding room. I wouldn't call it a cell. It wasn't like a cell, but I was put in a holding room, and they said that they had to call the state that I'd run away from, or the town that I'd run away from, and let them know that they had found me. And when they came back into, I was a mess. I was shaking. I was terrified. I had no idea what would happen next. And the officer came back in the room. I'm going to cry. And he said, the police department there said that your home isn't safe and we need to let you go. The only person that could have reported that would have been my therapist. And I'd never even told her all of it.
Yeah.
And that woman quite possibly saved my life.
Yeah.
So, after that, I decided I wanted to go back to the same high school I had been at to graduate, because I'd done really well there. And I had such a reputation in our hometown. I didn't want to finish school there. I didn't want to get my GED. I just wanted to move back and finish high school. I was on a path to graduate with an advanced diploma, and thought that I was going to join either the military or go to college. So I had to work on getting emancipated, but my guardians were being super difficult. They wrote letters to the judge and to my grandparents, basically saying what a piece of crap I was, that I was a pathological liar, that I was not going to be any better than my own biological parents, and that I wasn't capable of being a healthy, functioning member of society. 5 and 6 page letters full of what a piece of garbage I am. And now looking back, again, hindsight's 2020, I think they were setting it up to seem as though I was a pathological liar. So if I did report the abuse, no one would want to believe me, which now makes me believe that both were aware. It wasn't this secretive thing happening that I thought it was. I feel like maybe they were both aware. So yeah, that's, I planned on writing about it. I'd finally made peace with, I told you I'm an overshare. That's the first time I've really got all of that out verbally. But I did get emancipated, and in the process, I met this boy that was just a friend. He was just supposed to be a friend. I swore that I would never be with another man again. Because of all the abuse I'd endured, they just weren't safe.
Right.
Something about this boy was different. And he ended up, he was 18, had already graduated high school. He was already head over heels and didn't like the idea of me leaving. And it was actually my grandpa suggested that I invite him to come with me. And I was like, I've known this boy for like 3 months. He's not going to move 700 miles away so that I can finish high school. And he's like, you never know if you don't ask. So my grandparents don't just, because they weren't those type of people. Like, grandpa was a man of few words, and he would not have suggested it if he didn't feel like this was a good man too. But anyway, I asked him, and his dad forbid him from talking to me after that. And so he wrote a letter and put it in his dad's mailbox and left in the middle of the night with me to go back to the state I needed to graduate from. Uh, very Romeo and Juliet of us.
Yeah, no.
So we moved back. Tons of drama in between. You guys just have to read the book one day. I don't have enough time to even.
No, I'm excited for sure. Yes.
We skipped so I was emancipated. I paid thousands of dollars to get emancipated, but no one wanted to rent to us because I was 17. Those papers didn't mean diddly squat to a renter. We finally found a motel, a little like don't go out after dark type of motel at the beach. And after months of paying $800 a month for a 1-room motel with a mini fridge, he was like, I actually have a property available in a nice neighborhood, and you guys have been good tenants. If you get some roommates, you can probably afford it. So we found a couple roommates and we moved into that house. I had to drop so many of my high school classes to be able to work enough to pay our bills that I wasn't able to graduate with an advanced diploma, but I was still able to graduate with honors. So I was proud of myself for enduring all of this, keeping my grades up, graduating. Like, it just felt like a victory. But the roommate situation had gotten a little hairy. So Casey, my husband, was like, I'm not living here anymore. I hate it. So we ended up moving back to our home state. We got engaged while we were there, moved back to our home state. He moved back in with his dad. I moved back in with my grandparents. We stayed engaged for 2 years, got married. And as soon as we got married, I was relentless for asking to start a family because I still had this daughter that I had placed for adoption that I had not got to meet. I got a package of pictures and a letter that gave me a little update on her once a year. I still fought depression over that and feeling like basically a copy paste of what my grandparents had always told me. I assumed she was being told, your mom doesn't want you, but we did. So I lived with this guilt, thinking that this child would grow up to hate me because her parents were probably telling her that I didn't want her. And so 6 months into marriage, we got pregnant with our first. And I think maybe 2 years after that, we started consistently trying, could not get pregnant. And then when our daughter was 3, my father announced that his girlfriend was pregnant, and we started keeping an eye out on things. And essentially what happened after she was born, when she was about 3, so she stayed in the hospital for the first full week. She had, I think it's the meconium, where they like breathe in the meconium. So she was in the hospital for the first week. By week 3, they started asking us to keep her overnight, multiple nights a week. And by the time she was 4 weeks old, it was, can you just keep her? And they were supposed to be getting in a healthier spot. It wasn't supposed to be a full-time gig. It was supposed to be, we're gonna help. We'll be, what's it called? Respite. We'll be respite. You guys do what you need to do to get your feet in under you, get in a healthy place. And then by the time she was 4 months old, we got full custody. And around this time, I was battling my own demons, questioning God a lot. Like, why would you let me endure all this? And I finally felt a little peace, and I felt like God had called me into high school ministry to talk to other girls that were possibly in hard situations themselves. And so I started high school. I started doing first I ran from that for a while. I didn't want anything to do with high school girls. It sounded really overwhelming and intimidating, and I was like, I'm not doing it. And the depression was getting worse. I was battling with myself more, and finally I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do it. And I went to talk to the the student pastor. Come to find out, it was somebody I'd went to school with. And I was like, I don't know what you remember about me, but I am not that person. I promise I'm safe for these kids. It was just so funny because I didn't recognize him. He recognized me. He's like, aren't you Raquel? And I'm like, why? This isn't going to end well. So it was really funny. It was almost a week after I'd signed up I finally relented, and I was like, yep, I'll do high school ministry. I got a call from the adoption agency that I'd placed with, and it was her parents had called them and asked if we would be willing to meet, that she wanted to meet me. And I still remember where I was. I still remember the emotions. Like, I mean, I had been led to believe that I would not be able to see her until she turned 18. And that was if she chose to find me. So I spent all this time mourning this child, like thinking she's going to turn 18 and not want anything to do with me. But she was 9. And we went to visit for the first time, and when she was 9 years old, and it became a yearly thing. And then I feel like there's so much detail, and yet so much, like, there's so many big moments to hit on, and I always like to include the little detail, but I'm afraid that I'm gonna I don't know. Anyway, we when our youngest, so my biological half sibling, she was 4, and our biological father passed away. Shortly after that, her birth mom started messaging that she was going to get her back, and that she was going to take us to court and get custody back. And at this point, we were terrified. This was she had been our daughter for almost 5 years. We worried about how she would transition after 5 years. We didn't know if her birth mom was in a healthy place because she hadn't kept up with us for the 5 years. She canceled any visits we tried to schedule, got canceled. And it was just this really, really scary season of not knowing what was next. And a week later, her birth mom texted back and said, I've been praying about it, and I just feel like it would be unfair for us to take her out of the only home that she's ever known. So as long as you're willing to have an open adoption and let her know who I am, I want to sign the adoption papers. And so we moved forward with that. We finalized her adoption, and that was just a couple months before she turned 5. She's about to turn 10 now. We have been in contact with her birth mom. She got to meet her for the first time last year. So we've been navigating that open adoption. My oldest is about to turn 19, and we've had a beautiful relationship that really started blooming when she turned about 15. By 17, we started traveling full time 5-ish years ago now, 4 years, 5 years, with my husband's work. And so by 17, she would fly out to where we're at and spend a few days with us and get to visit new places. And so I feel emotionally drained after this one. I don't know what to say now.
No, like your story, and I know Delancey will probably have a bunch to say about it, but dude, like, I don't know, like you have gone through so much hardship, but like the person that you are now, Raquel, like you're such a beautiful soul inside and out. And I just love watching your story. And I love watching you with all the meetups with your daughter, and just your kids are so beautiful because you can see that like they know that their mama like is just a strong, badass person. You can see that in your daughters because you are instilling that in your daughters. Like I love watching them. Like it's just, and I'm so grateful that you found your husband because he just seems like just this amazing person that just has nothing but your best interest and just head over heels for you. Even like to this day, like watching you guys on your anniversary and stuff, it's just so, I don't know. It just makes my heart so happy because of everything. I mean, we could like talk for like another 5 hours about everything. I'm not even kidding you, just because of everything that you've brought up. Like, that so many women go through that doesn't even have to be adoption. You know what I mean? Like nothing adoption related, but with like the sexual abuse and the manipulation and all that stuff. And just like how you completely, it's scary. Cause like you said, and I think the thing that I love that you said today was just like carrying that guilt of not hurting people that were supposed to protect you, and how you're like, I'm done. Like I am done because it was a disservice to me. And now it's okay for you to speak your truth. So, okay. Sorry, Delancey, you go ahead. I'm just like,
No, you're like that. Just wow. I mean, I
Lifetime original.
Like,
I told you.
I mean, that was. I mean, I like. I don't know if you saw. Like, I'm not very okay. So I mean, we've all agreed that all three of us are oversharers, like just flat out. We just are, and I think that's what makes this so beautiful. And I'm really thankful you are an oversharer because there are so many parts of your story that I don't know if you at any point in time saw my face, but like I'm pretty sure my face said everything. Like I just like I am so amazed and by your strength and by everything, not just your strength now to share your story, but your strength to endure every single part of your story. Like there were portions where I was like, Lindsay, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. You're gonna start sniffling into your microphone. Don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. Because like there were so many things that like I could feel it so deeply. How it's almost like, and I mean, and we talk about God a lot on our podcast, but it was almost like it was just Satan trying to rip you apart, doing everything that he could to rip you apart by using these circumstances, by using these people. I'm not gonna lie, I took notes because I am a note taker. And at one point, I'm pretty sure I wrote down, yep, right there. Her guardians absolutely suck. So I will say I'm very thankful you got into high school student ministry. I'm very thankful that you are sharing your story and as much as you can in every platform. I'm very thankful I got to hear it today because this is amazing. This is I'm blown away. Like I'm reading over some of the stuff as I'm talking about this, and you have got to write this memoir. You have to finish it. You have to get it out there. Like just like Milena said, like this isn't just something to help adoptees. It's something to help birth moms. It's something to help parents who adopt. I mean, you touched on things that I've never even thought about trying to research. Like I've never even thought about. I didn't know what kinship care was. I didn't know what that was. I didn't know that was the step before, I didn't know that that was the big thing that threw me for a loop. But like the intricacy and forget that word because I'm just not gonna say it right if I try to say it again. I say the details of your story and how it all intertwines together. The way you told it is so intriguing that I need to know where this newsletter is, because I want to know more details behind this. And I want to be able to share this with as many people as I can. Like this needs to be out there.
No,
This will
that's
help
true.
so many people, not just in the adoption community, but people. Oof, now I might start crying. People that are told that they're not enough, and just because somebody else thinks that that's the way that they should validate how they're showing love. And I'm not saying your grandparents are bad people. I would never say that. I'm not trying to allude to that at all. I mean, they were just doing the best that they could.
Right.
But people need to understand that saying they didn't love you, they didn't want you, but I do. So that's it. They need to understand that that's hurtful.
Yeah.
And they may not understand that. And I think that there are a lot of people out there that don't understand that when they do that A versus B type of comparison to show love is not the right way to do it.
Exactly.
And the only way we're going to be able to break that cycle is with stories like yours.
Damn it, Delancey. You're freaking
I'm
me over,
sorry.
girl.
I'm trying so hard right now. Like, y'all don't understand. Like, I'm trying so hard not to like just completely break down, because everything about your story just.
The truth of the matter is, I'm a drop in the ocean. I am not the only one that has endured this type of life. The thing that makes it different is God. The fact that I've endured it, and I won't even say that I've endured it well, but the fact that I've endured it and been able to cling to hope at the end of the day, the fact that I've endured it and not become a bitter person, the fact that I've endured it and I still have a heart to help others, like, and I'm not trying to make myself sound like this amazing person, like,
No.
all of that at the end of the day is just, it's how God has worked through it, because I didn't allow my heart to get hardened. And I don't know what makes me different from, Susie or Karen or Michelle. I'm just throwing out random names. I don't even, but like,
I say you did choose Karen though. So I feel like that was appropriate. You did choose Karen.
But the fact that, so many women have endured similar stories or worse stories. I know like so much more bad could have happened to me, but at the end of the day, I think the difference is I've tried to use it for good. Like, I've tried to find a purpose in it. I've tried to not let it be in vain. And I don't know why I've been able to do that. And some people succumb to addiction, and some people succumb to, looking at it from a worldly standpoint, like when I lay it all out there, I have every reason in the world to be a bitter, hateful person, but I think what makes my story different and what makes people want to hear it is because no one wants to hear a sob story that ends in, a bad ending, but people want to hear stories of overcoming, because then it feels like their own stories have hope that they can cling to, if that makes sense.
No.
Oh no,
it totally does. Yeah.
Completely makes sense, because I love that you said God is the difference. At the end of the day, God is the difference. And like you brought up the worldly standpoint, we talked about in church one time of like people ask why. Like it was a sermon, this was actually I think a few months ago, and it was like, why God, why God, why God, why do bad things happen, why do bad things happen? And he said, and he made a great point, he's like, no matter how bad the circumstances, it shouldn't be why God, it should be why not, and see what you can do with it and be better for it and share it. And I was like, well, that's a different take. And that's everything that you're saying. It's from a worldly standpoint, people who do succumb to addictions because they're trying to validate and they're trying to fill that void, and they're trying to, I guess, ignore the pain or numb it. I mean, I know a few people who are in recovery who say that a lot of people like to say addiction's a choice. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I do know that once people make the choice that they want to get clean, and they go after God and they go after sober living, it is easier to overcome those addictions. So I completely agree. It's a God thing. And we lost her. Where'd she go?
Dang it.
Dude, that was so good. Where
She'll
is
be
she
back.
go?
We'll
I
give her
need
a
her to
minute to
come
come back on.
She needs to come
No.
back right now.
She's
Dude.
amazing though, huh? Like we'll
Oh
just talk
my
about this
God.
freely before
Okay,
she
I
comes
was gonna
back.
say
Like
freely before she goes back on. She'll hear it on the podcast anyway. Bro,
she's amazing. And it just breaks my
she's
heart that like
incredible.
through her hardships, she was not allowed to grieve. That's probably one of my biggest frustrations. Like, you know, sitting there so emotional over replacing her baby, and they're like, get up, get out, do this. It's like, no, she
It's
just
like the part where she said,
thing.
we're gonna drop you off at a friend's house. Our kids don't need to see you like that. Like she's an inconvenient. Like she's like I even wrote that down too. Treated her like an inconvenience.
I know.
I'm telling you,
Ridiculous.
if you saw
I'm
the
gonna
things
see
that
if
I
I
wrote,
can.
if you saw the things that I wrote about her guardians, I just want to talk to them. Just want to talk to them. Just want to share with them
guys,
the love and joy of Jesus.
You guys are here, and we lost Raquel. Bless her heart. No, she's amazing. I'd like to give a little
She's
bit more
incredible.
background on her. They travel full time. So they live in a trailer full time because her husband does, I think, things for different like national parks, which is pretty cool. They get to like
That's pretty amazing.
Everything they get to do. So she's like a traveler. And so internet can be hard for her. And so I don't know if the library's like, and you're done because she was off for a while.
It made me giggle a little bit. I almost feel like because she does all that that he because she was like, I'm only gonna be gone for an hour. Hours up.
You're done.
I feel like
no, but like seriously, okay. So I'll plug in about her a little bit. If you guys aren't following her, she's on Instagram. That's where I found her. Somebody shared one of her things. Her content is beautiful. She takes time to make such amazing content about the real raw, and she hits everything. Like, oh, there she is. Oh, she's back.
She's back.
Hopefully we'll get her on. But no, seriously, and her is McLeod, I believe is her handle on Instagram. Yeah, McLeod Life. So you guys need to go follow her. Yeah, McLeod Life is you guys need to follow. We were just talking good things about you while you disappeared. We know you're not very good where internet is.
It got so hot
100%.
in here, my phone overheated.
Oh no.
And it wouldn't allow me to, like, I had to pour water on it. It wouldn't allow me to turn it back on.
No.
Oh, shoot.
I felt like I was gonna, like, I was so involved in like telling the story. I hadn't noticed how hot I got until I was too hot. And as soon as I opened the door to let some air in, my phone was like, phone is overheating.
Your phone was like, deuces, I'm out.
Yeah, I can't handle this no more. So I'm trying to hold it in the shade now.
No, that's good. No, but what we were just saying about you, like, you're just amazing. And we were just saying, like, everything you've overcome is hard. And we were just saying how sad it was that, like, when you were not allowed to grieve in certain parts of your life, that you should have been allowed to grieve. And just the person that you are even now, like, not even having that, it just shows, I don't know, like, how just amazing. I just don't even know how to put it into words, like, because like you said, there's so many people that they could just like let this bring them down, and you've just chosen not to. Is probably one of the biggest. You have chose not to.
You made a choice.
People that, yeah. And oh, you guys, like I said, we were talking about before, go follow her. She's amazing. She's writing a book.
I just followed her as we were doing this.
Her kids are beautiful. You need to go, like, her daughters, they're just amazing, because you can tell, like, from the mom and, like I said, like, from her husband, like, just the strong family unit that they are building. And it's so much fun to watch her oldest come into, like, you'll see little sneak peeks of her come and visit them, and just the joy and happiness with all of them. And it's just, and I love that for you. That's one thing I wanted to touch on, Raquel, is for you that you had that those parents that adopted your oldest were like, here. And they, with everything that they could have known of your background, been like, oh, we're not going there. Like, no, absolutely no way. But they, like, that makes them beautiful humans too.
It does.
Like, seriously, like, just to be like, here, we want her to be part of your life here. Like, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
I'll show you something else. You guys can have the first real sneak peek, because all my stuff's stacked up here because I'm going into the library.
Yeah.
I love
Oh my gosh, how cool. So If you guys aren't looking at on this on YouTube, you're not going to see it. But if you go to her Instagram too, I know she's working on it. And so, yeah, you'll have to go look all the amazing stuff that she's got in the works. Like she said, she's a writer and it's beautiful. And I'm excited to read her book when it comes out. I will be blasting that crap like crazy on my social
100%.
media when it's out. So everybody will go get it.
100%. Like this is, I'm excited.
Yeah. I know you. No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you're good.
Oh, I was just gonna say I've wanted to do this for years, and so we're working on a series. I don't know if your friend, I know you probably know because I have talked about it on Instagram, but I don't know if your friend knows. But I'm working on a series of kids' books that cover all different aspects of adoption, like a book for the subsequent children of birth mothers who don't understand why they have a sibling that lives with a different family. Like there's no books on that. There's no children's literature on that. And it's just a huge passion of mine to get, and I know like every adoption story is so different and I cannot possibly cover the nuances of every individual story, but even just to have some type of literature for a child to hold in their hand that feels relatable, I just feel like it's so valuable. And I'm excited to have this project going too.
No, I'm excited too. It's beautiful.
I love that because it's not a lot of people know, like you said, because it has to be age appropriate. You know what I mean? If you want to have that conversation, and there are plenty of people out there who say like, you should never tell, like, yes, they should tell them, one, and two, like that's usually my reaction that I roll. Like I can't, but I love that you're doing books. Yeah. I love that you're doing children's books on it because it'll help them understand at the level that they are. And so as they go, they always have an understanding because we've always had understandings of our adoption taught to us by our parents. And I think that would help people navigate a little bit easier because, children learn from books best, especially little books you can read to them and they can see pictures and they can understand. You're just, Raquel, you're amazing. Like, you're just amazing. You're amazing.
I'm all right.
No, you really are though, because like I love everything that you stand for and just what you're doing. And I just hope you grow so freaking big on Instagram that it's just like, I know I really, really do, because you are somebody that you need to touch every single person's life, whether
absolutely
you have some value to give.
You need to reach everyone.
Yeah.
I have my fear of critics.
I know, because they suck. They're assholes. We've all experienced them.
We know, trust us. I mean, Malaya's got them on Instagram and I've got them on TikTok. They are not nice people. But
that's what happens when you try to be positive and share the light, even though you share the shit and you share the goodness of it. People don't want to hear it. So they're just,
people still don't want to hear it. They want to be
said the other day. I think you said it the other day, Raquel, is hurt people. Like they really do. Like, that's all they do. So anyway, okay.
I laughed out loud yesterday at my youngest literature assignment. She was having to read these sentences and one of them said trolls are not real, and I'm like, you're wrong.
Because it's true. It's true.
I'm sorry, maybe like the fun musical trolls aren't real, but go to the internet because they're certainly there. They're certainly there.
That's so true. No, seriously, anything else that you want to share, any closing words or anything, Raquel, before we?
Oh man, I'm gonna be honest. You're just gonna have to pull it out of everything else I already said. I feel like I'm emotionally spent.
No, I love it. And you guys,
if I have any other thoughts.
You need to go follow her. And also she shared she shared a lot more on the interview I did with her. And so I can share that too when we share this podcast on my Instagram, because like it was just the first time hearing. But like I said, she shared new things today. Like every time somebody shares your story, you learn something new. So just go follow her. Her content is seriously so beautiful. And I'm just like, do you just want to come make all my videos? Because she's so good at it.
Yeah, I won't lie. I was just scrolling through her Instagram right now as we're sitting here talking. I'm like, my goodness gracious. Like, I love her content. Like, I'm just like scrolling through.
she's very seriously, like, it's amazing the gift that she has with that, and her daughters too, because she shares everything that they do. Like, I just love it. I love it so much. So seriously, thank you for taking some time out of your morning to sit down and do this with us, and tell your husband thank you, because we know
Yes, please tell your husband thank you.
Thank you.
But thank you for coming on, and seriously, we just love you. You're like the best. And yeah, anyway. Yay.